Be sure and tell them Large Marge sent ya.
In the 90s, we were just teeny tykes. We went to movies and our bikes. We wanted to be DJs, but we were just teeny gals. So we went off to college and we remained best pals. 20 years later, we're still watching flicks and we're bringing you the favorite bit by bit. Sweetie and Sweetee are here to say it's the Large Marge Santa's podcast. Hey.
Hey guys, welcome to the Large Marge Tennis Podcast, your favorite podcast where two Sweetie sisters talk about movies that shaped their childhood. I'm Sweetie with an IE.
And I'm Sweetie with a Y.
Hey ho!
Sup?
Okay, so yeah, it's been a long time. All I'm gonna say, we've been doing stuff. Just announced today on the podcast Instagram. Sweetie, I guess I'm referring to him as Sweetie the Second. I'm pregnant, so Sweetie the Second is coming to your podcast near you in February.
Right, because Sweety Jr. is Sweety Jr. So
Exactly.
okay,
Exactly. So he's a boy, so we're throwing that all out the window, but who cares anyway?
who cares?
Yep. So that's one of the reasons. Kind of been a little hard to podcast. If you've ever been pregnant, really tired for a couple good weeks there. Wasn't too bad, but definitely wasn't getting shit done is what I'll say. I was getting shit done like growing a baby, but in terms of getting other shit done, not getting that shit done. It was also summertime. I've also been really obsessed with Ancestry.com, and that seems to be sucking up a lot of my time.
She's gone down a path that she's not going to return to. It's just I told her she has to apologize to the fans because the real reason we haven't podcasted is that Sweetie's been doing Ancestry, whatever that's called.
Oh, yeah.
Lineage
It's bad,
tracking
guys.
instead of watching the movie like she should be.
Oh, yeah. And I had a real wake-up call today. I do this kind of daily Marco Polo chain with my friends, and I've been updating them on the Ancestry stuff. And my friend was like, listen, we don't want to hear about it anymore. Which is I totally understand. It's not their family.
No,
it's
they
not
don't care.
interesting. Great. And thank you, Reby, for calling me out on that because if you don't want to hear it, fine. I'm not going to tell it to you. So I told them I'd only update them if I had some very big announcement that I found oh my God, a long lost relative in Zimbabwe.
There you go.
So there goes that. But anyways, guys, we are back. I have high hopes for us and the schedule coming up. I have a lot of good, I added a lot of good movies and shows to my list. I'm excited about them. And I think we're good. As I said, once the baby comes, all bets are off whether I'm going to be really up there. But, maybe he'll give me something to do because I'm on maternity leave.
Maybe.
That's a lot of time for movie watching. When babies are really that little, it is a lot of sleeping.
Yeah.
And, he can watch the bad movies with me. I'm not going to influence him.
Yeah.
Maybe I should influence him.
Yeah. Why not? We influenced
I know.
Sweetie Jr.
I know, exactly. So, so high hopes. Anyway, with that being said, this new season, I called it a new season.
Nice. Yep. Sure.
Let's say it's a new season.
Yeah.
New season of Large Marge sent us. Our first movie is
Toy
Soldiers.
Not to be confused with Small Soldiers, which when I told everybody I was watching this movie, 9 out of 10 people thought I was referring to Small Soldiers. And I have a feeling that Small Soldiers wanted to name that movie Toy Soldiers because really that is a movie about toy soldiers.
Totally.
But they couldn't because this movie had already taken that title. So it's just too bad.
Totally. I clarified this on my Instagram story, and then I also found that there was a 1984 movie also called Toy Soldiers. Don't know what that's about. There's a bosomy lady with a gun on the poster.
Obviously.
Didn't really
it's
dive
no
into
good.
it.
Here's a better name maybe for this movie is Boy Soldiers. Just throwing it out there.
Well, you know what? It's funny you mentioned that. I think they said that's what the titles were in different countries. We do that sometimes. We
Okay.
say, "Oh, what was this title?" Because sometimes the titles in English, the direct translation doesn't make sense. Just the way language works in other countries. So they do name it something slightly different. So good call, Sweetie. In Germany, they had the same idea. I think they called it Boy Soldiers. I would have called it Daddy's Boys.
Yeah,
That
that
there's
works
a lot
too.
of like daddy issues with
So
this,
many.
I feel like.
They all.
There's some daddy
we'll get
issues.
into this, but it's like, okay. So, spoiler alert: there's only one woman in this movie, and it's a phone sex operator woman's voice. That's it. All the boys are being like coveted as hostages because their dads are so important.
I think you forget the woman who got thrown out the window at the beginning.
Oh, sorry. Yes. How could I forget? But when they were like naming all the boys, they're like, your father is blah blah blah, your father is blah blah blah. I was like, where's all the important moms? Like, what bullshit? But it was.
They didn't exist, Andre. This was 1991.
It was the 90s, late 80s, 90s. Like, we're still kind of figuring that shit out, but it was too bad.
Totally. I mean, this is a classic boy movie. I mean, I'm not gonna mince words here. This movie is made for boys, young boys, to be like, yeah, boys kick ass. I mean, it's also falls under my favorite genre, which is kids save the day movies, which we covered a lot. Love them. Makes you feel good when you were a kid watching this, being like, yeah, like kids can do it. Even though like they didn't like. They like helped save the day. I didn't think they were like
they
totally did it.
No,
at the
they
end.
weren't like the main ones. I mean, I think the true American hero is the dean, really, who like really saves the day because that end scene was just brilliant. But yeah, I don't know what this obsession in the 90s was of like. Or 80s, 90s of just like giving kids too much responsibility for no reason. Like, I don't know. And it's like, I don't know. I would even loop like Rookie of the Year in that category of just like, oh yeah, boy can pitch for the MLB. Like, who cares? Like, boys can beat terrorists.
And we said this, I think, when we covered The Rescue, which was an 80s movie, but
okay,
again,
I thought that was
similar,
Red
like,
Dawn.
Umbrella.
I got confused.
No, which we should watch because that's listed as like similar to
Is
this movie.
Patrick
and I was like,
Swayze in The Rescue?
in Red. No, we watched The Rescue.
I know.
Remember Kevin Dillon is the bad boy.
Now,
in
I
that.
know we watched
Patrick
it.
Swayze is in Red Dawn.
I truly thought it was Red Dawn all this time. So,
but when we did that movie, we talked about how these movies gave kids really unrealistic expectations for like what they could do. and yeah, I don't know like what it was, just studio heads being like, yeah, kids are really gonna like this. Them like being in the driver's seat, like saving the day. Yeah, I guess, but like. And in like really serious situations, it's not like blank check, like where the kid is like, like leading his own life and independent. That's kind of like its own thing. But these are like scary war situations. And I feel like in the 80s and 90s, we also talked about that a lot. This obsession with terrorists, obsession with like these bad like countries. So in this one, it's Colombian drug lords. And that kind of terrorism. So again, like that kind of thing comes into play here. And again, kids are saving the day against the drug lords, man.
Well, they sent all the other adults home except for the cook and the headmaster. Like, okay. So they had no choice. But yeah, Colombia, I would say like 80s, 90s, our biggest enemies were Russia, as always, Colombia, and then Libyans. Were like the main threats to us, and like especially Colombia, like because Romancing the Stone too, right? Like it was just like that was the lore of like you go to Colombia, you will be kidnapped. Like it was like
and
crazy,
and with like drug culture, like just say no, how much like the drug talk was happening here, and there was a drug. I'm sure there was a significant drug problem then, still is. And we're still dealing with drug cartels and all that. I don't know if it's Colombia or if it's somewhere else.
Totally fine to visit. Like I have my whole team lives in Colombia, and we visit there. It has
been cleaned up quite a bit. But yeah. So anyway, I don't know. Solid action flick for me. Really enjoyed it. It has really a lot of the 80s stars that you loved as kids have suddenly grown up and are like teenagers, which for me, okay, this is how I first saw this movie. I remember I was like breezing through TV and I'm like, oh, what's this? And I'm like, what happened to Mikey from Goonies? Oh my God, he's like grown up. And I had such a crush on Mikey from Goonies, and that when he was like cute and I was young. I mean, obviously he's a bit older than me. And in this movie, he is supposed to play, he's a high schooler, but he's like 20 years old. And I just like was like, oh my God, like he's grown up, like this is crazy. And I remember like the part where Will Wheaton gets shot. Like I remember just being like, okay, this is like the next level of like the 80s stars, like moving on to like these kind of movies. So I remember seeing it and being like kind of not scared, like just being like, whoa, like time is marching on.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember seeing it. It's possible I saw like a scene here or there because you were watching it or something, but my only memory of this is that you always talk about it. And you're always like, what about toy soldiers? Toy soldiers? And I'm always like, what? Small soldiers with Tommy Lee Jones? And you're like, no. Yeah. And so
it always stuck me. And I was under the impression that the school that they attend was like a reform school. I mean, it like kind of was in the sense that a lot of the kids had been kicked out of other private schools, so they were like troublemakers. But I thought it was a little bit more of like a reform school, and they were all like really bad kids who needed like to be set straight. But it's not really like that. It's just like it's like a private school, like a boys' private school.
It is, but
mostly it's just where their fathers are very wealthy, and they're sending them there.
Yeah, but
they misbehave because they are wealthy. Right?
Yeah. Well, it seemed like there were two pieces. Like it's definitely one of like it's probably like the least exclusive private prep school because it's all the really rich kids are bad kids, so they just keep getting like expelled from other schools, and then they end up here, which is why they call it like the reject school. But then you also have a faction of kids that are like too poor to afford like the bigger boarding schools, and they just have like this is the only place they can attend or whatever. And that's why you had that. Oh, sorry, there was another woman, the mom, that was like, but my kid is there on a scholarship. Like, why does he have to get lumped in with these rich kids? And so yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, the Regis prep school. Good times, prep schools.
The Regis.
Does this take place in New England?
It is a real prep school because they said it is now just like a regular. It was a boys' school and it's now a co-ed private school, high school. But I guess it was also the same filming location for Major Payne, and I'm trying to remember what part of Major Payne. Oh, I guess like the military part. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really get that connection, but anyway, same thing. Is it New England? Maybe.
I thought
looks like it
was, or someone said that, and then like I don't know. I mean, I'll talk about that later, but I'm confused about the geography. But fun flick, excitement.
Yeah. Okay. So who's in it? So like I said, Sean Astin has a very Corey Haim looking kind of thing going on here with his hairstyle and his like. I mean, the whole movie is just a catalog of like 90s boy fashion. We'll get into it, but it was like pretty amazing, especially Sean Astin's look, I will say. Also kind of remind me of the Billy character from Stranger Things, and like also his like styling and his attitude.
Well, the earring,
I got that from him. Then you have Will Wheaton as, now he is supposed to be like the tough New Yorker. His dad is a mob boss, so he has this really unfortunate New York accent. But he's also like kind of gothic, or you think like gothic or punky? Like what was that?
He's like alternative. I don't know. He had
alternative.
He had that like Egyptian symbol, the Ankh or whatever, like as an earring. And that was like his main style statement. I don't know. I kind of found him to be a little quiet. Like I didn't really know too much about him. Like they didn't really like dig into that. They don't really dig into anything, but
no.
Yeah.
I mean, he has the main daddy issues in the sense that he hates his dad. His dad's a mob boss, and that gets factored in the plot.
His dad, and his dad is
His dad is, okay, for me, uncredited in IMDb. So before I watch a movie, I go through and I just make sure I know everyone in the movie, and I write it down like we're doing right now. Jerry Orbach, uncredited according to IMDb. So then when he just suddenly is in the room when they get all the parents together, I was like, what? Jerry Orbach? I mean,
realized he was uncredited.
Suddenly brought this movie stock up way up for me. Love that bitch.
Yeah. Everyone's favorite dad.
Yeah, as the mob boss dad.
Everyone's favorite dad except for Joey Will Wheaton, who hates him. Wow. And bushiest eyebrows, like I'm happy for him that he let those hang loose, Abe Vigoda style.
Then you have Keith Coogan, so our favorite from Adventures in Babysitting. Don't tell mom the babysitter's dead. Playing a very similar character to, I'd say, Adventures in Babysitting, where he's kind of like, he's in this friend group, but he's definitely like kind of like the, not like loser, but like he has asthma.
He's like the least rebellious of the bad boys.
Rebellious. They do not show him with his shirt off at any point, I'll say. Like all the other guys, especially like the kind of buff Latina guy, he was like always in like no shirt.
Ricardo.
So he's like just like the little bit weaker one, but he has all kind of like the funny lines and stuff. in typical Keith Coogan fashion.
Keith Coogan looks younger in this movie than he did in Adventures in Babysitting. I was super confused about that. It's like, how is that possible?
I don't know. I don't know.
Interesting. Yep. Okay.
Age backwards. So that's kind of like the main three guys. There's a couple other guys. Like I said, there's like a Latino guy and there's a black guy who are not like really necessarily famous actors. No offense to them. I didn't write down their names, but they were great as well. Brings the whole diversity thing full circle in the 90s. Always good to have, but they were great. And then you have Denholm Elliott as the headmaster, so we know and love as Marcus Brody from the Indiana Jones series. Love that guy. Feels a little out of place in this movie in the sense that he is like this very esteemed British actor, and when he like gives his like he's such a good actor, you know, it's just like he's giving these lines and he's like Laurence Olivier on like a Shakespearean stage like delivering the script, but love him to pieces. Like Sweetie said, he is the one adult that stays with the guys. Was that like a captain like won't leave the ship kind of a thing? Like he didn't want to go, or they wanted to hold on to
so
him?
Like, yeah, I had to rewind several parts of this movie because I was watching it while I was doing something else, but I was captivated. But I felt like things kept happening without me realizing it. Like I didn't realize they sent all the other adults away, so I didn't even like see that. I was like, wait, what? So I don't know. Couldn't tell you.
Yep. Yeah. So he was great. So as Sweetie said, American hero, all American hero here, Louis Gossett Jr., who is a fabulous black actor who's been in Officer and a Gentleman. He was in the Roots series. Like, I love that bitch. So good. He is the dean of the school. And unfortunately, or fortunately, he is away, like, trying to talk the sheriff into not disciplining the boys, like, when the terrorists come. So he's able to be, like, on the outside. And yeah, saves the day. He's amazing. Again, love that guy. And then directed by Daniel Petrie Jr., who didn't really have any directing credits, but was the writer for Beverly Hills Cop and Turner and Hooch. So he's done like a lot more writing, and he's done like a couple more directing things, but nothing of notice. But I thought, like, even if he hadn't directed a ton, solid action flick. Had everything you want from an action movie.
Arlie Emery makes an appearance. He's the classic military character actor who's in like every military movie. He's like a military person.
The big eyebrows?
He's in the big eyebrows. He was in Full Metal Jacket was his big movie. But very famous, and yeah, it was nice to see him. Nice to see him pop up again.
Yep. I didn't write down the name of the main terrorist guy, but he has been. He was like a terrorist in a lot of different movies.
Andrew Divoff.
Yeah. I guess
he was born in Venezuela, but his mom is of Irish descent. She's not Venezuelan, and then his dad is.
I saw Russian.
So he's probably not Latino, but he's definitely typecasted as a Latino in most movies he's in.
And it looked like he was like a terrorist in a lot of different movies, so he kind of has that like terrorist face. For me, he looks exactly like my ex-boyfriend Phil, to the point this whole podcast I'm just going to call him Terrorist Phil because that's all I see him as. Phil, I hope you don't listen to this podcast anymore, but like, he looks exactly like him. It
pretty
was
funny.
It was crazy.
You texted me that because I was tracking. He definitely reminded me of somebody. I couldn't put my finger on it. I was thinking, okay, he's a Latino. Josh Brolin was like the closest I got. And then when you said that terrorist Phil, I was like, oh yeah, that's him.
Wait, Josh Brolin, Goonies, Sean Astin.
I know
Goonies.
That's why I was like, whoa. Weird.
Whoa. Yeah, weird. But he was good. He was definitely like effective terrorists. The terrorists were all pretty effective, to a point. And honestly, they weren't that bad. I kind of felt for the guy.
As far as terrorists go, I think it was okay. They were okay.
Yeah, they could have killed a lot more people, and I feel like they honestly like were pretty decent terrorists as far as terrorists go. Because like they weren't like unhinged. They just like wanted to get the guy out of prison. They had the plan.
It didn't go to plan, so they had to improvise, and then things got a little messy. But we'll get into it.
We'll get to it. Okay, so yeah. Oh, and then I just want to mention, so the kid, so there's this like really sweet kid who helps out. He's one of the younger kids in the school, and the guys end up being in his room. They don't really know him, but he's into like gadgets and stuff. So he helps them like figure out sort of like the technical aspects and how they kind of like win at the end. So they call him Yogurt. And I guess like that started when they were filming the movie and they were all like in a van going somewhere and they hit a bump and he was eating yogurt and yogurt got all over him. So behind the scenes they called him Yogurt, and then that they just started calling him that in the movie, and the writers were like, great, that's awesome.
Cute, I love that.
So they called him Yogurt. Unfortunately, that actor got into a car crash like when he was in his 20s. He was in a lot of 90s shows and whatever. And then was in a coma for 4 years before he died.
no.
So wicked
Yogurt.
sad. So
Sad.
shout out to Sean, the actor named Sean Phelan, who has since passed away. But yeah, Yogurt. And I loved that character.
Yeah.
And he really like helped
He was
us at
sweet.
the end and was so
Yeah.
sweet. So pour one out. Pour a yogurt cup out for Sean Phelan. Okay. So let's get into it. It's time for the Sweetie synopsis. Yeah.
Sweeties.
Yeah, I don't think there's any
Yeah.
memorable quotes in here.
Put down that banana or something. Like there's like some crazy line like that.
Is that mouthwash?
Yeah. I thought it was. They fooled me. All right. So Luis Kelly is the son of narcotics trafficker Enrique Kelly. And Enrique has been taken into custody by U.S. Marshals. He's in prison. His life's pretty much over. But Luis, like, won't have it. So he's taken, like, some government people hostage in Colombia. And he's like, tell me where my father... I don't know. There's, like... He's, like, trying to get shit done. It's not working out. He ends up just, like, throwing people out of windows and planes.
I know. That's, like, his modus operandi for, like... He just is throwing people, like, out of buildings and planes instead of shooting them. I'm like, what do you... That's terrible.
Well, yeah, because he's a terrorist.
Ugh.
Terrorist.
Awful.
Why make it a quick...
I take it
quick
back.
death?
I don't feel bad for him.
Right. So we meet. So he's the villain. He's got this vendetta. He's like, how can I get my dad back? What can I do? Blah blah blah. So that's kind of like the central conflict, right? So then we move to the Regis Prep School where we meet this group of boys led by Sean Astin's character, who is Billy, and all of his friends who are all, you know, ragamuffins in their own like way, just like always causing trouble. They break out of they sneak out of their rooms in the middle of the night, and they like go through this secret passage off of the kitchen, and Billy unveils his creation, which looks like a bottle of green mouthwash. And so they all take a shot and they're like, is this mouthwash? Gross. And he's like, no, it's vodka with like a little bit of like creme de menthe to give it the green color, and then something else to make it seem like mouthwash. But I've sold it to like 50 guys in this school. I made like $100 or something. And is someone calling you?
Yes.
Weird. So they're having a great time, and then he like hooks up this like I don't know what this technology is, but he like somehow like has this weird like keypad phone thing and like hooks into like the school phone line, and they call, as you do when you're at, you know, hanging out with your buds, a sex line, especially in the 90s, a phone sex line. And so they're like talking to this woman, and you know, they're having a great... I've never understood... I think I've mentioned this before, but like I never understood the appeal of like boys all coming together to either watch a porn or like listen to phone sex, because it's like, don't you want to like get, you know, like touch yourself and like you're feeling hot and bothered? You want to be around all your friends when you're doing that? Like,
I don't... It's just like a
never
totally
made sense.
different
But
thing with sexy stuff.
things are getting wild, and that's when the dean notices that there's a call. The classic like 80s 90s trope of like, oh, there's a call, someone's on the phone, just like in the Chipmunk Adventure, and you click the button and then you listen to like what this other phone call is, and he hears the phone sex and he's like, oh, I'm gonna find these motherfuckers. So he finds the secret passage, busts them. Really his eye is set on Billy, who we gather has had several problems. The movie opens with them, Billy's like tagging the sign of the schools that says Regis School to changing it to for rejects. And so they're bad boys. And he's like, listen, do you want us to expel you? And he's like, I don't care. blah blah blah. He's like, well, where would you go if you got expelled? Because was your last like school basically that he's been moved to like a billion schools. He's like, I don't know, like I wouldn't want to live with either of them. So you gather he has like mommy and daddy issues, and he's
parent
just
issues.
Yeah, parent issues, and he's just like adrift, you know, in the teenage sea of angst. But he doesn't end up getting expelled. The dean says he's going to make it his mission to ensure that he graduates because he thinks that's like the actual punishment, which is kind of true. And I respect that that choice of his. But anyway, so we find out that one of Billy's friends, Phil, his dad is the judge presiding over the case of this narcotics trafficker, Enrique Cali. So some U.S. Marshals or whoever, important people come, and they're like, we have to move you to undisclosed location because you might be in danger. So they pack Phil up, and they're like, bye. So Phil's gone. Phil's out of there. Meanwhile,
Bye, Phil.
Lewis has, started his plan. They've come over the border, in crossing over from Mexico into wherever, I don't know where they are, what like part of the border this is in the U.S. They kill the border patrol, and then if this does take place in New England, they drive all the way to New England to get to the school with the intention to kidnap and hold hostage Phil, who's the son of the judge, in the hopes that they'll be like, oh my God, don't kill my son. Okay, I'll let this narcotics trafficker go. It doesn't, obviously Lewis, didn't really think this plan through a whole lot, especially because Phil's fucking gone. So they get to the school, they're, shooting up the place, there's guns, they shoot, one teacher, and one kid tried to call somebody on the phone for help. They shot the teacher that tried to, help him. So everybody's, real freaked out and scared. Billy quickly realizes that they're looking for Phil because they have a picture of him and they're looking down the boys. Is he is this Phil? Is this Phil? This isn't Phil. This isn't Phil. And somebody was like, yo, Phil's not here, man. They took him away, secret time. We don't know where he is. And so they're like, okay, fuck. So then there's all the Billy's friends' files are scattered on the table, I guess because they had all just gotten in trouble the night before. But as luck would have it, all of Billy's friends happen to also be the most influential parents of the school. So they all have a parent that is big and important that could be used as leverage in getting this drug trafficking guy's dad
who do
out
we
of
have? We
jail
have
or whatever.
a congressman. We have the
banker.
third biggest contractor in the world, some Wall Street banker,
Mob
head of the Bar
boss,
Association in California. Yeah, a mob boss. So it's all these very connected families, obviously, because they're sending their kids to these private schools. Well, most of the kids are rich, so they know then that okay, well we don't need that one kid. We can ransom these other kids, totally fine,
so
and get
pivot.
what we want.
Pivoting to the other boys. But they're keeping all the other kids hostage in the school. They've let the other adults, with the exception of the cook and then the headmaster, Marcus Brody, in the school. And then the dean, as luck would have it, is actually outside of the school getting rid of the mouthwash alcohol or whatever. He's running errands. And so he misses it. While he's out, somebody is like, hey, they're shooting at the Regis school. And he's like, oh, shit. So they fly back to the school. They see these guys in the tower or whatever with this crazy machine gun. And they approach the cops that have responded to the scene. They shot the only security guard at this school. He's dead. And they're like, we can't get close to the school. They start firing every time we do. And the sheriff's like, well, I'm just gonna have to make a move here. And he gets in his car and is like, attention. And then they're like, boo 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 with the machine gun. And he's like, ah.
And then they pull out
And
a
then
bazooka and
a rocket
fire.
launcher. They pull out a rocket launcher.
Oh man, that was awesome.
And they-
I love when just the rocket launcher comes out or a bazooka thing, and you're like, oh man, they made business.
It's crazy.
That was
And
a
it's
really good scene. Good
So,
good explosion.
I mean, they went from Colombia to Mexico with a rocket launcher and all of this shit, and then took a casual road trip to New England with the rocket launcher and I don't know, it just doesn't make sense. But anyways, so now they're like, yeah, we can't get in the school. We gotta bring in the big guns. So let's call the FBI, whatever, terrorist, whatever that's called, people that what is that job called when you're a terrorist negotiator or something? They have a bunch of those people. They've got the military involved. They've set up this whole operation. So a couple of rules the terrorists have have given is that they're going to do a head count every like 30 minutes or something. And if anyone is missing, they will kill 5 people. And then that number will like multiply. So like if 2 people are missing, they'll kill 10 people and like, really crazy shit.
That was really smart, I think.
Yeah.
Because you're like, because before they do that, you're like, okay, like some kid's going to escape. Like some
Right.
kid's going to like
Now
do
you
this.
can't.
But
You
they're
can't
like,
escape.
Oh, no, you
They've
can't.
also, unfortunately, wired the whole school with explosives, and the trigger button is on the guy's like wrist on like a swatch watch or like a whatever thing that he can just press at any time and blow up everybody in the school. So that's another problem. Along with the terrorists is this random American guy with glasses who like they don't get into him very much, but I was so curious, like what is his deal? Like who like what bee is in his bonnet where he's like, I need to join these Colombian drug terrorists and kill these kids.
Yeah.
Like it didn't I'm not sure about him. But anyways, so in terms of terrorists and hostage situations, I would classify this as like a pretty comfortable hostage situation. Like the boys have this, I mean, they still have their school. They have to sleep in like kind of different rooms. They're kind of like, bunking like 10 boys up instead of like 3 boys in one room or whatever. They still get to eat. They can hang out with their friends. They can take random classes from the headmaster.
Smoke.
They can smoke cigarettes. They
kick
can
balls.
They can deliver food to the terrorists. Like it's like
Yeah.
it seems okay. Like it's gonna be fine. But obviously Billy's like, we got to do something. He's the leader, like the troublemaker. So the dean on the outside is basically telling the FBI, like, listen, like I think we should give Billy a chance. Like he's a leader. He's a troublemaker. He's gonna wanna. He may be able to save them or whatever. So they first start their first plan into play here, which Billy says, we need to tell the FBI or the military everything we know about these terrorists. So I have to like somehow find a way to escape and like deliver this book of secrets to them and then come back without the terrorists knowing because they're going to do the head count or whatever. So the main plan they have in this movie is diversions, right? So the first one, is it the smoke alarm? Or I guess it's like a bunch of diversions. It's like Keith Coogan gets an asthma attack.
Out of there.
Yeah.
No. That's not until later. But like,
Okay,
remember
so
the guy's kicking the soccer ball around and he kicks it and it breaks a
plane.
window while he breaks a window at the same time. They have the plane
right.
distracting the guys. Also, Billy can do this little back way to get. They know some back tunnels that lead out of the off campus because they're used to sneaking out all the time. So it comes in handy that they're bad boys. And he sneaks out. He's able to use these tunnels and whatever and like get to the military. Mm-hmm. Now, the military is like, oh my God, one kid escaped. Awesome. Like, great kid. Like, thanks for your info. But we got one kid out. Like, we got to keep him in. And he's like, no. Like, if I stay out, they're going to kill my friends. And they're like, no, you got to stay here. So these dumbass like military guys are like, you have to stay here. And finally, like the dean rolls up.
That was crazy.
He finally listens to him. And Billy is like, this is probably the most tense part of the movie. 5 minutes to get back. So he like steals a Jeep. He like is able to just make it in time. Luckily, again, I feel like the terrorists were way too nice because they do the counts at least 3 times.
They're
so
really
they count
extending
91.
it.
There's 92 kids. Or 92 everybody. They count 91 literally 3 times. And
Let's
so
check
they
again.
they don't want to kill people. They really like don't. And then finally, like, Billy rolls in soaking wet in a towel and is like, oh my God, I'm taking a shower. See, they can take showers. Like, this is luxury.
Yeah.
I was in the shower. I didn't hear you. Like, so sorry. So he still does get punished. He gets like whipped with like a metal stick, whatever that baton thing was. Scary. But nobody dies, right?
Yep.
And he was able to get the plans out to the military so they have an idea, like
Success.
a heads up of what they're dealing with. So awesome. Very brave. Billy,
Right.
brave dude.
Brave. Go Billy. You did it. And genius too. Like he had fallen in like the sewer pipe or whatever when he was coming back. So that's how he got wet. So really smart of him to think on his feet of like, what's my excuse? Oh, I was in the shower because he was already soaking wet. Meanwhile, Jerry Orbach, so Joey's dad, is like really, they show a brief meeting with all the parents like concerned or whatever. And like the non-famous parents are like, why is my kid involved in this? He didn't do anything, blah, blah, blah. And so because Jerry Orbach is like a mob boss or whatever, he has all these connections. So he's like, we got to tell those terrorists like who he is, who Joey is, who I am, and like tell him that like they need to let him go. And there's the way they communicate, like, I don't know, there's like codes involved. I don't know. But at some point, the main terrorist brings Joey into his office, which is like, was the headmaster's office. And he's like, hey, he's like, don't worry. We respect your father. So we're going to let you go. And Joey's like, what? Fuck you. I hate my dad. And like, it's just like, you know, just rebellious and is like, no, like, that's not fair. Like, I don't want to, you know, I don't want to leave my friends here. Joey flips out, steals one of the terrorist guns and like runs out the front door of the school. And then the terrorists out there to like defend themselves shoot Joey a zillion and one times with their machine guns. So poor Joey not only dies, but also is shot to death in front of his friends. Really brutal and sad. And like, poor Joey. Poor Jerry Orbach too. Like your little scheme to get him out really backfired there on you, buddy. And so the terrorist is like, you tell him, like, we did not want to kill this boy. Like he, like, you know, they weren't going to kill him. They had to do it. Blah 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 blah. So now things are really like kicking up a notch because Billy's like, okay, we got to get the fuck out of this place. Meanwhile, there's a prison riot where the main drug lord, the main guy's dad, is being held. There's a prison riot and he gets tossed over, again, tossing over, you know, dying from.
Well, they slit his throat first.
Oh, they slit his throat and then tossed him over the side. So Sweetie and I were talking about this a little offline before about like, was that prison riot was somebody purposely targeting this drug lord? Like, what was the sitch there? Honestly, we don't really know. They don't really go into it. It's just like,
yeah, I thought for some reason the government was involved in that. Like they somehow, like that was the plan all along.
Because
like,
they knew,
like, let's just kill this guy.
I don't think so,
like,
because
then
they
that guy
knew,
won't have an issue.
Well, they knew that this terrorist was going to do anything to get his dad out. So if that's why as soon as this guy does die in prison, they pull the power from the school so that the terrorist doesn't catch wind that his dad is dead. Because once he finds out his dad is dead, they're worried that he's going to kill everybody and blow up or press the button and blow up the school. So the new plan, and sweet smart yogurt is like, I know, like the chip that's in his little detonator thing is the same. I don't know how he knows this. You know, smart kids, blah blah blah, meow meow. They just know. The chip is the same chip as like the one in my like remote control plane. So if we swap out the chip and then swap it with this one, then it's disabled and he can't trigger it or whatever. So that becomes the new plan. So now they have this whole very like intricate plan, which they don't really like key us in on. So we're kind of learning about it like as it's happening. But Billy and Yogurt like go in the bathroom. They crawl up to the, you know, there's like a crawl space up there is how they get to. Where are they going up there again? In
the headmaster's office.
Headmaster's office,
which
is where the detonator
is. The detonator is. Yeah.
And so they're disabling. They do this, you know, the very tense, like, is it the green wire? You know, that classic trope. They get the chip out. They swap it. Unfortunately, one of the terrorists has to make a potty break like during this time, and so that really kind of messes the plans up because the kid who was keeping watch in the bathroom is like, oh shoot, like what do I do? And the like signal that they were safe is that the water on the sink would be running. And so when the terrorist kicks the boy out, the terrorist now is washing his hands. So Billy and Yogurt think that they're all clear to like come back into the bathroom, but unfortunately there's a terrorist in there. So they drop down. The terrorist is like, whoa, what the fuck? And like tries to get him. And then you think all is lost, but that the lookout kid tells Ricardo, one of the other boys, is like, oh, bad news. So he comes in, he helps them. They you know, take the gun away from this guy and like they smack him in the head with the gun. So he's knocked out. So take care of him. And then there's just, you know, like, I don't know, lots of chaos.
Well, at this point, the military is like sending guys in. So they like have all the plans. They know they have to move quick because this guy's going to find out his dad's dead and going to blow up the place. So they start sending guys in, and then there's like gunshots. One guy like falls off the roof and a grenade falls out of his pocket and then, like blows up some of the American guys by accident. So whatever. So like havoc. It's, you know, this a lot of stuff.
But they're making their move. They're making their move. Their assault like on the school, and the dean's joined the fray. He's come in. He's like, these are my boys. Like I got to protect them. So So the terrorist takes Billy hostage. Right at this point.
Yep.
But not before Billy. So they've they've taken care of like the main terrorist other guy threats. So Billy now has a gun. He's like, everybody to the kitchen. So he's getting everybody through that secret passage to like whatever the sewer and then the thing and then to get them out. So pretty much all the other boys are now like kind of safe and clear. But then the terrorist takes Billy and he's like, you're coming with me. And he like, gets him into the office. There's a scuffle. The dean like breaks through the window and like shoots the terrorist dead. He's gone. He's dead. And Billy's saved. So it was close. Oh, yeah, and the American guy with glasses got killed. There was a helicopter involved at some point. Like,
yeah. It was just like total pandemonium. I love those moments where like, okay, so the dean was out the window and like the Billy is being held hostage. So the dean's like, well, it's like I really can't get a good shot on the terrorist guy or else I'm going to shoot Billy, right? So he's waiting. But then the terrorist guy is going to like take the thing out of the detonator. So that's going to blow up the thing anyway. So the dean's like, I got to do something. So that's when he like jumps in the window and right as the guy is going to like take the wire off of the bomb to make it go off, he shoots him like just at this right moment. And and then Billy's able to get away, and then they shoot him. The guys coming through the door shoot him like in the head. But I love those moments when you're like, you just gotta like go for the shot.
Yeah.
And, like, you get it? Yeah. And then the dean gets shot what looks like almost right in the heart. And I was like, oh my God, he's a goner. But luckily, I think it was more like almost towards his armpit because he's walking out like very lightly bandaged, like with Billy under his arm. So I'm like, okay. Because I thought it was like a sacrifice thing.
No,
I was like,
that would have been so
not
sad.
the dean.
That would have been so devastating. But no, and they have this sweet little moment of reconciliation. And Billy's like, I'm sorry I was such an asshole to you. Now they're like little buds. And like, it just really warms your heart, And then he reunites with all his friends. His friends are like, where's Billy? Where's Billy? Because he's not with all the other kids. They're worried something happened. And then he comes like running out of the side thing. He's like, I'm okay. And then they're like, yeah. And end scene,
End scene. So
I
thought it was great. I thought good. I feel like good representation of like boys at this age. I'm not a boy of this age and was not ever, but like I just felt like it was legit for what I know about boys of that age. I felt like the action was like spot on, like great gunfighting, great explosions, whatever. And it was almost 2 hours, but really did not feel 2 hours.
It seemed a little long.
It did. I think it went by really fast.
Because I was watching it while I was doing something else, and I missed some things and had to like replay several parts several times. But it's kind of like I said, they seem to gloss over a lot. And like, they just didn't have enough time. I mean, I'm sure they wanted to cram like a lot more into this, but like, we just don't really get a sense of like who the boys really are and like what their real story is. Like that was definitely lacking. The action was fun, but yeah, there's just like a lot of like gaps, but I don't know. Overall, decent action flick. Exciting. Sad friend death.
And like good, like I feel like one of the guys had to die. Like one of the boys had to die.
Always die in the things? Is he the one always dying? No.
What else has he died in?
Oh, sorry. No, I think I'm thinking of who was the boy that died in?
Me?
Yeah, Stand by Me. He does not die because he's the author.
Yeah.
Who dies in The Outsiders? Ralph Macchio.
Ralph Macchio.
Oh, okay, okay. He's not even he's not even in that movie. So okay, forget it.
Yeah.
But
I think he was like, I mean, he was a good one because he was just like so unhappy with his like, I don't know, he was like the moody one. He was unhappy with his family life, and I don't know, and he just like wanted to do that. So yeah, good solid flick. Okay, so let's talk about some other stuff. So you already brought up the phone sex operators, but to me that felt so 90s to me, and I honestly loved it.
I wrote that in
Took me back, not that I ever called the phone sex operator, but like that was such a thing.
Well, we would call the opening, like whatever, like the main entry point is, where you're like press 2 for blah blah blah. But obviously we weren't going to do anything that like required money, so that's as far as we would get. But it was such a curiosity for us of just like, ooh, phone sex, like blah.
And let me tell you, if you never did this as a kid, because you could literally dial 1-800 any like dirty 4-letter word, and it would be a phone sex line. It was really easy
Remember,
to do.
we did this live on the air in one podcast episode. We're like, does 1-800 blah 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 like boobs still work? And it did. And so they're still going strong. Those phone sex lines.
I know,
which is
so
surprising.
awesome.
I don't know how those things stay in business when you have things like,
I don't know either.
YouPorn or Pornhub or whatever. You know, just like delivering the raunchiest porn you could ever want free to your eyes. So like, why do people need phone sex at all?
Oh, totally.
I don't know.
I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I loved in the scene where the guys were like, so Billy is like, he's like, my name's Steve. And she's like, Steve, what do you look like? And he goes around and gives a quality of every one of the guys, like of the friends. So, like I'm 5'8" and I weigh this much was one guy. And then like, I have blonde hair like this guy. And then he's like, did I mention I'm black? And then the lady goes, I just love a black guy with long, blonde flowing hair. It was really funny.
Hilarious. Yeah.
So good.
So 90s.
I noticed a lot. So most of the stuff I'm bringing up is really 90s stuff. Okay, a lot of ponytails in this movie. So not only I feel like do terrorists always have the ponytails? That's like a very common thing, right? Like terrorist equals ponytail. But a lot of the boys had ponytails. You look around that cafeteria.
Yeah, long hair was
like, long hair, 90s kind of. Totally. I mean, I wasn't a long-haired girl, and I did not love a ponytail, but like really brought me
men.
back.
She loved a ponytail for herself, but not on men.
Yes.
I wonder if all of our love for 90s movies is why we don't love long hair on men, because typically, as we've mentioned many times, the villains had long hair. Yeah. Die Hard, the villains have this like long hair, and you're like, ew.
I know.
So maybe that's why I don't like it. But long hair's back in. Like most of my male friends have long hair now, and it's great. I love it. It's fine. Good for them. But yeah,
I like it more now that I'm older. Like I think when I was young, I preferred the clean look, but like when I'm older now, I'm like, like long hair's pretty hot. Posters. Okay. 90s was the time of the poster. Now, reflected in these guys, it's like a dorm room, right? So they have all these posters like everywhere. Now, if you go to college, if you're in college now, are you putting posters up in your room? Is this still a thing?
Did.
Okay.
I mean, we did. I did, and it was the 2000s, so it was still. I mean, it's your
if
primary
in college. Has a college student, so let me know.
Right, but
it was just felt like the time. Like I got I got this Bob Marley poster. Yeah. Like I got this celebrity poster. I got this movie poster. Like what are posters of now?
A strong sense of art, right? So it's not like they're like know how to decorate a room. Like the easiest way for them to inject a room with their presence is putting posters of their favorite musicians, or like I didn't look at all the ones around, but like classic 90s posters would be like a picture of a rainforest and it's like the Amazon. And then or like,
well, that's what I'm saying. Like, but I want to know, what are kids doing posters of now? Because remember in the 90s, we had like poster stores. So you'd go to this poster store and you'd flip through. They were all in frames, and you'd flip through, and then they'd be in like stacks. Okay, number 119 is my No Doubt poster, whatever. And I'd pick that up and I'd take it, to the register, and that's what we're doing. So I'd love to know if that's like still a thing. But it really brought me back, and like definitely all the different posters they had, and like decorating dorm rooms in general. Very exciting. Along that line, so like the fashion, as I said, this was like New Kids on the Block coming to the big screen. So you had like cut off jean jacket, you had the cut off like t-shirts, the high tops, unlaced high tops. You had jeans with like cuts in the middle, cuts on the knees, and like frayed, very loose. I love the 90s guy fashion. I was just like, I was here for it. It was, again, pretty good. Brought me back.
I got one. That's so 90s Radio Shack. So they name drop Radio Shack at some point, because I think the dean asked him how he hooked up that like phone thing, and he's like, I don't know, I bought it at Radio Shack or like something. And I was like, Radio Shack, like I can like smell that store still. Like our dad loved like tech gadgets and like tech things, and so we would often go to Radio Shack, and it was a delight.
It was a lot of fun.
90s.
What was your big question, Sweetie? I remember you asked
me. My question
before.
is, do boys really sit around in their underwear? Yes or no? Like, so several scenes in this. Sweetie mentioned Keith Coogan's not seen with his shirt off. However, he is seen with his pants off in the dorm scene, where they're all just in their briefs, and everyone's wearing briefs, tighty whities, and they're just like hanging out in their underwear. And I was like, is that what boys do? Is that what they're doing? I don't know. Maybe. They're like so hot all the time? I mean, like our dad slept naked or like in his tighty whities. So I believe it. and maybe it's just like a thing that like boys tend to run hot or like whatever. But
I mean, my husband does not sleep in pajamas. I'll tell you that. He sleeps in his boxers. So I think it's a sleeping wise. This is a thing. Guys run hot. They don't really have. They don't have pajamas. I've even like in the winter. I've been, I tend to run cold, so I always have pajamas on. And then sometimes I'll like strip down because I'm hot once I'm sleeping. Yeah, but I'm always like, please put on pajamas. Like, you must be freezing in this bed. Like, you're going into this bed with like almost no cold clothes on. It's so cold, but he never wants to. He doesn't want to wear socks. He's like, I'm shocked. So this must be like a guy thing. But I thought also that seemed like a fun, potentially realistic thing for me. And I appreciate that they did that they were like, okay, like this is how guys would be around other guys. It's not like they're seeing any women and their moms or like literally anybody. So like, this is what goes down. And I appreciated that.
For sure. Socks for bed always seems like a good idea, but then in the middle of the night, I'm like, I'm so hot, and I have to like peel them off.
Are you kidding? The entire like bottom of my sheet, because sheets are tucked in, is just like a collection of socks once winter comes around, because I just like kick them off. Usually I can like take them off and throw them next to the bed, but sometimes they just make it in the bed.
It's the socks
graveyard.
Graveyard.
Where did all my socks go?
I'm just so hot. I'm just always hot. I think it's related. My duvet cover that I have is like especially thick, but it's like so cozy. But I just like I can't give it up, and so I'm just like a sweaty mess all night. But yeah, that's funny about the socks graveyard. I saw a meme. I saw a meme the other day that was like, do you feel like you always are missing socks like out of the dryer, which was always like the joke, right? And like Jerry Seinfeld had a really funny bit about like when you open the dryer, the socks are like stuck against the side and they're like, nobody move, he won't see us. But I saw a meme that was like, actually there is a place that socks fall, like you're not crazy, they do like go through this like little tube and then fall out the side. I don't know if it's true or not, but it really blew my mind, and I was like, whoa, is that true?
Well, this is what I've figured recently as I've been doing laundry in my new house. Socks often when I'm moving, because they're tiny, they're smaller than any other piece of the laundry and travel in like two pairs or a pair. When I'm moving stuff from the washer to the dryer, like socks always fall on the floor. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I can see them and pick them up, but I think sometimes I miss them or they fall in the crack between the dryer and the washer. And I think that's where they go.
For sure. That's where they go to die.
So
sad.
They go to die. That's where they're breaking out.
I just thought of something. Do you think the other boys were mad at Phil after the fact of like, hey, Phil, thanks for getting us all hostages because you weren't here, so they took us instead? Like, I don't know. I wonder if anybody gave him shit for that. Just a thought. We don't get to check in on Phil.
Did he come back?
I know. We don't know.
Did he come
I hope
back?
he's okay.
What happened with that school in general? Were they able to keep going? Did they close down?
Yeah.
I hope they got counselors for these boys,
Yeah.
because this would be something that like obviously really going to fuck you up. Especially, and they do like, there's after Joey gets shot up, you do have Billy like in the corner of the room, like crying, like in a fetal position. Yeah. So they do like make mention to like, okay, that was a very traumatic thing. These are these very tough boys, but like, even they are like, oh my God, I just saw my friend get shut up. So I like how they did that too. It was nice. Yeah. Nice. But yeah, I hope they got some counseling. I hope, they ended up being okay. And just, word out to terrorists. Don't go the hostage route. I'm just going to say. And, I was thinking, like, say this like, went down and they were able to release the dad somehow and the hostage situation work. So then were they just going to, like, leave the private school being like, bye, leaving how we came out in our laundry truck? You don't think they would be followed down the road and, like, gunned down immediately?
Well, that's the thing that terrorists never think about.
What's your end game?
The thing that terrorists never think about is, like, there's no good way out of it. Like, you either get what you want and then they come get you after, or they kill you. It's like there's not an in-between. And, like, I like I said, like the whole premise of this movie, I was like, just seems like a lot of work for like for not being able to like for an inevitable ending of like, dude, your dad's in prison, like he's gone, he's dead.
And here's my question: why wouldn't that guy just take over?
Yeah, like why does he need his
you
dad?
Take over the drug ring.
Why is he so obsessed with like he doesn't have daddy issues?
His time
apparently.
is over. Yeah, that's what I said. I think this movie is really about that terrorist daddy issues and how he would do like stop at nothing to get his father back when maybe he should have been like, wake up call, time for me to take over.
You get busted by the American, U.S. Marshals, you're pretty much done for. Pick a new pick a new boss. Like, get on with it.
Totally. I felt in those sad terrorist-filled eyes, I just saw like, you know, a lost little boy who just wanted his daddy back.
He seemed to have a lot of depth and like heart, and like I feel bad it ended the way that it did, but like I guess he was a terrible person, especially when you think about like
I think he was.
the beginning scene.
Yes.
So yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
He was touch and go.
Anything else?
But yeah, good flick. Good one to start this season. Happy we did it, and happy to be back.
Totally. We're back. I gotta pick my next movie, guys. I don't know. So yeah, come and find us on Instagram at Large March Sent Us. We're back. We're excited, and we got Sweetie the what do we say? Sweetie the second? I'm like Sweetie the third. I don't know. It could be like
creating a dynasty here.
It could be like Sweetee Jr. because like Sweetie Jr. is like your junior, and this one's a boy, so it can be Sweetee Jimi's Jr.
Okay, that would make more sense. Carol messaged me privately and said, "Is he gonna be Sweetie with 2 E's? SWEETEE?"
Yeah,
Whew.
I guess so.
So we could do that as well.
That's true.
So.
That works. Thanks,
Okay.
Mom.
Okay, verdict's out. We're not sold on Sweetie the second. We'll see.
Good. All right, great. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for listening. Bye.
Okay, bye.